Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. We are here in San Francisco, live at the Federal Building, about to witness a press conference. We're going to get closer now.
Yeah, and we want to create a space. I know that there's different outlets, San Francisco Chronicle, so that's great. If anybody's with the press, you want to come in.
Make sure you don't log
This. All class reps to be together. Yeah, absolutely. We'll all be together. Okay. So, yeah. Good time. 12:01. Let's do it. You want to keep it?
Welcome, everybody. It's been amazing to get to this spot. It's been fast, it's been exciting, it's been rewarding, it's been hard, it's been everything. And we're here, and we're not going away, and this is going to spread all over. 10 counties joined together. 10 counties. And times, they're getting worse and worse. You know that. We need each other. We need to be joined together. This is spreading. Thank you. Oh, let me introduce Seth first, okay? This is Seth Donnelly. He's the spearhead of the whole class action suit. Sorry. I use my hands when I talk. I'm sorry. He's a resident of Sonoma County. He taught public high school for 23 years and is a lifelong educator and human rights advocate. He's one of the founders of TAG, Taxpayers Against Genocide.
I'm trying to get this tightened up a little bit. Just like this. Okay. We appreciate everybody up like this. Okay. It's Kiyoshi Taylor, amazing comrade. Had the honor of working together in 2015. He's a student and now he's my teacher. This is a very historic moment. Right before this started, the court processed the complaint. It is official. This is a very serious complaint. This is a very serious complaint. It's being studied by attorneys in New York with the National Lawyers Guild. It's being, people are looking at it to replicate this into other parts of the country. It's our hope that it will spread. So it's an honor to be here today. I'm going to be one of the MCs along with Anna Marie introducing the incredible class reps who are all plaintiffs in this historic lawsuit, right? And Anna Marie is a lifelong community organizer for social and environmental justice. It says here on the bio she always makes good trouble. That's certainly true. I've only known her now for a few months working on this, but I can already say how important she is in my life. And I remember when I first met her, I learned of dozens of good trouble, of nonviolent arrests in the cause, you know. And sometimes that says, we know from Dr. Martin Luther King that it's important to challenge power and to break the laws, and they need to be broken. Here we're, of course, such as segregation and Jim Crow. Here we're actually using the law to challenge those who are illegally using our tax dollars to fund genocide. So you'll hear more about that as we go down the line, and then we want to have time for any questions from the media. Okay. So with no further ado, I'm going to turn it back to Anna Marie, who will introduce the next guest.
Oh, where's that thing?
There's
okay, there's that thing. That's better, not in my hand. First, again, I want to say what's going to happen is we're going to introduce do a land acknowledgement, introduce the lawyer, our lawyer. It's his birthday, by the way. And then we're going to go through a series of class reps, and then we're going to have a Q&A for the media, and then we're going to have some chants, and we're going to break bread because Leslie is breaking her. Where is she? Leslie's breaking her 31-day fast today. Okay, so first we're going to have a land acknowledgement. David Martinez, White Kyrie in his language. He's a Winnemem Wintu from Shasta County. He's going to do the land acknowledgement. He's also my partner.
I'm Waikari, Ni Winnemembos. Means I come from the McLeod River, or the Waiwaka Winnemem. I want to acknowledge the fact that we're here on native lands. This is the Ohlone people's homelands. Through occupation, through colonization, and genocide was stolen from them. It's hard to stand here on their lands and see that what was done to them is an ongoing effort in Palestine. It is nothing different than what was done here, only faster. And give thanks. We're seeing it in real time on social media. We're not seeing it on usual media, the news medias. But the same things that were said against the native peoples, the indigenous of these lands, is being said about the Palestinians, the Syrians, the Jordans, all throughout the Middle East. They are the original people. It is heartbreaking that our government stands by and uses our tax dollars to fund genocide, the occupations, the stealing of indigenous lands. Like with all indigenous communities and all communities throughout the world, we need to stand together and say, no, stop this. Not in my name, not with my tax dollars. I want to thank everyone for being here today and supporting the Palestinian people. Whoa.
One of our class reps, you're good. One of our class reps could not be here this morning, but makes very much the same connections that David was just making in his acknowledgement. And that class rep is Judy Tologan, who's a Chumash elder and an activist now residing in Sonoma County, and has been a driving force of a lot of efforts at making change in our community there. And so she has asked me to read this short statement from Judy Tologan. For decades, weapons have flowed into regions plagued by conflict and division. Today I speak specifically against weapons investments, military aid to Israel, a nation that receives billions in arms despite documented human rights violations against Palestinian civilians. This is not a critique of people of faith. This is a critique of systems of violence and injustice. This is a settler colonial apocalypse. Free Palestine. That's right. And so, and now I want to introduce the lead attorney, Dean Royer from Suzetu and Wong Law in Oakland. And just very briefly, I've known Dean now for about 30 years. We were doing political work together, and then we've stayed in touch all these years. And when he heard about this, he dived in. He's a person of great principle, and I'm proud to call him my friend.
Thank you, Dean.
Good afternoon. Again, I'm Dean Royer. I'm senior litigation attorney with Zito Wong Law and the lead attorney on this case. We represent a class of taxpayers. We represent a class of taxpayers throughout Northern California, as was mentioned, multiple counties. And our class has been harmed in the sense that, has been described before, their tax dollars that they have been required to pay to the federal government has been allocated to pay for the genocide that is ongoing in Gaza.
Shame.
This lawsuit says no. We don't accept that. We're going to challenge that. You have violated our clients' rights to have their tax dollars to be used only for lawful purposes.
That's right.
We are focused on a number of laws that have been violated because of the use of the tax dollars in this fashion. One is the Convention, International Human Rights Law Convention Against Torture, which specifically prohibits complicity in genocide. And that's exactly what we're alleging here. The tax dollars are being taken from our class members, our clients, and being funneled to the Israeli military and then being used to carry out the atrocities in Gaza. That is complicity, is what we are saying to the court and to the public. There are a number of other laws. There is the Leahy Law, which prohibits aid to foreign security forces that have committed gross violations of human rights. The author of that law, former Congressmember Senator Leahy, has come out publicly and said, in fact, his law has been violated because of what's going on in Gaza. Also, the Foreign Assistance Act of 1961 and Arms Export Control Act, which prohibit assistance to any country in which the government's engaging in a consistent pattern of violating internationally recognized human rights. Again, we think it's clear that that's what's going on here. And these are all federal laws. And then there's the conventional arms transfer policy by the U.S. federal government that prohibits U.S. weapons transfers that risk facilitating or otherwise contributing to violations of human rights or international law. So you can see that there's a number of violations going on here, both from international law, human rights law, to federal policy. Now, figuring out how to present this to the court was certainly a challenge, and as Anna Marie described earlier, it was an effort figuring this all out. We are presenting this case under the Ninth Amendment. Ninth Amendment essentially says the rights that are specifically laid out in the other amendments, that's not a limit on the people's rights. The people's rights are otherwise reserved, even if they're not specifically contained in other amendments. And so we've taken the Ninth Amendment and then combined that with the section in the Constitution that says the tax and spend authority of Congress, taking tax dollars and deciding where it's going to go, what it's going to pay for, that can only be used for the general welfare, is the language. And what we are saying in this lawsuit is that using tax money for unlawful purposes in multiple ways cannot possibly be for the general welfare. So that is one part of the case, and we're going to be asking the court to make what's called a declaratory judgment, a statement, a declaration that, in fact, this is what has happened. Rights have been violated in this fashion. International human rights have been violated, federal laws have been violated, and therefore our clients' constitutional rights have been violated. We're also bringing this case under what's known as a Bivens action. Essentially, this is a way to challenge a federal official's violation of one's constitutional rights, but that is a vehicle to recover what we call damages or monetary compensation for the harm that's done. And so we're going to be seeking monetary compensation as well for the emotional psychic harm of being forced into being complicit in genocide that has led to, understandably, great emotional distress. And so, as was mentioned, we filed this case earlier this morning. It's now...
Yes. And they're being summoned.
It's now official. The next step is going to be serving the case on the two representatives, the defendants, who are going to have to answer in court. And so I look forward to continuing to work with all these wonderful folks and seeing where this goes. Thank you.
Yeah. Right on. Another round of applause for Dean Royer. Yeah. So now we've got statements from the class reps, some of the class reps, and we are very excited for you to hear them and to document this as well in the media. It's my honor to introduce Maria Bearcat, who is an activist from Sonoma County, lesbian Palestinian anti-war activist, sociologist of law and society, and public policy expert specializing in equity from UC Berkeley, and a very close friend and comrade. So let's give it up for Maria Bearcat.
My name is Maria Bearcat. I'm a Lebanese Palestinian American from Sonoma, California. My great-aunt Renee was expelled during the Nakba in 1948 from Palestine, and my father is a Lebanese refugee American citizen who immigrated here during the Civil War in the 80s. I'm a commissioner on the Sonoma County Human Rights Commission, and I'm also a rank-and-file member of the UAW with Greenliners United in Oakland, California.
Yeah.
For the last nearly 500 days, I've watched in horror every single day as my own people are bombed with U.S.-made bombs and my own tax dollars that I have worked for and paid. Murdering my own people with my own money. Innocent civilians, men, women, and children. An accurate accounting of the number of dead Palestinians is unknown, but suspected to be currently in the hundreds of thousands. Their deaths on the world stage in plain view is made possible by our elected representatives who voted illegally to send aid to the state of Israel in the face of irrefutable evidence of gross human rights violations and genocide. We cannot and will not stand by while Mike Thompson and Jared Huffman violate the U.S. Constitution and international law, abusing their authority to allocate U.S. federal tax dollars. Mike Thompson and Jared Huffman, your actions are anti-democratic. Your constituents overwhelmingly oppose U.S. support for Israel's genocide in Gaza, but you've both abused your authority, continued to vote for these bills. We've begged you to stop, and you've ignored us. We are sickened every day, as you should be, as we all should be. And we believe the courts will, given the abundant evidence, rule against these officials.
Yes. Right on. Thank you, Maria. And in case you didn't hear, we're talking about 10 different counties. This class has more than 500 people. This is unprecedented. 10 different counties are suing these two elected officials. Okay? Next, it's my honor to introduce Tariq Sharif Kanana. Tariq is a Palestinian American working in child nutrition and lives in Santa Rosa. Over the years, he's been active in the community around social justice issues, labor rights, immigration issues, housing justice, and tenant rights. He is currently one of the core organizers and leaders of Sonoma County for Palestine, of which I'm proud to be a member. And Tariq is also a class rep. Bring it up for Tariq.
idea, his vision, and you know, in the beginning I was maybe a little bit skeptical. I have no faith in the government, in the system in this country, but today I'm so glad I'm standing here with all of you. So, my name is Tariq Kanana. I'm a Palestinian American, and I'm proud to say that. I'm proud to say that I'm Palestinian.
Yeah.
I'm proud of my people for surviving all this, for showing dignity and strength and love to each other, for continuing on with producing art and poetry, for everything that they do. It's extremely difficult for me to stand here and claim that I have been injured, that I have been hurt, while, you know, that is happening to my people. But we have very few avenues to follow to try whatever we can do to get some justice.
Yes. That's right.
It's been 440 days, or 441. Over that time, I've shed so many tears every day, every single day. But, you know, when we watch what is happening, when I was listening to a recording of Hind Rajab talking, pleading to be saved from between her dead family members, and when I finally heard the gunshots that ended her life, it was a little bit of a relief. Cried. I shed tears a year ago for little Reem, and 2 days ago for her again and her grandfather. During these 440 days, I've witnessed Israel destroy my history. When you hear news about I think it was the second or third oldest church in the world being bombed and destroyed, I've witnessed the destruction of a homeland, of a culture that I'm a product of. And I've watched as they desecrated burial grounds and dug up remains of fathers and mothers and grandparents, all so that the refugees have nothing to come home to. But still they're coming home and they're building their houses. I've seen this expand from Gaza to the West Bank, to Lebanon, to Syria. I've seen the racist oppression of the Palestinians in the 1948 Palestinians in the land occupied in 1948, which is now called Israel. And all of this has been made possible by my government. The very first day we heard Biden open his mouth and spread lies about what happened on that day. And he did that knowing that it's going to make possible, it's knowing what's going to happen and preparing the ground for that. And these lies were shown to be lies. They were proven, disproven, all the facts from all sides. It's not only what I'm saying or what the Palestinians are saying, it's what the Israeli press is saying. But those lies are still repeated every day. They're repeated by our government officials and our representatives in Congress, so that they can justify sending weapons to kill more people. But by voting the way they did, and Mike Thompson is my representative, by voting the way he did to supply Israel with money and weapons, he has made me complicit in the killing of my own people and the destruction of my homeland. So I'm here with all my friends that have become, over this past year, my support system.
We love you.
Love you, Carl.
We love you.
So I'm here with all of them and all of you today to hold Mike Thompson, my representative, accountable for his actions, for what he has done to all of us in this court here. And thank you.
I won't hold it this time, I promise. I wave it around. Next up is Carol Bloom. She's a class member from Sonoma County. Representative is Thompson. It says Thompson here. Okay, all right. They're the same. They're both Genocide. We call him Genocide Jared. Is his name. Carol has been a resident of Representative Huffman's district in Sonoma County for over 30 years. She's a graduate of Sonoma State University, worked for the County Housing Authority, and for the Board of Supervisors Human Service Task Force in the 1970s. Carol is a professional mediator and trainer in California and internationally for more than 25 years. Trained in trauma and informed conflict intervention. She's also a very good friend, and we've made a lot of trouble together. Good trouble. Good trouble. Anna Marie.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here, and I want to focus primarily to start out on my efforts to inform my Congressman Jared Huffman starting over a year ago with frequent, many times a week, phone calls and letters begging him to understand the genocide that was going on and to speak out against it and to call for a permanent ceasefire in Gaza. Starting the beginning of this year, well, the coverage of the horrors that we all know so well and have seen were escalating. The obvious genocide, the murder, the maiming, the destruction, the displacement, and the victims being primarily children and women, and my efforts to contact my congressman and ask for consideration, ask to stop this, ask for votes, ask for public speaking that would call attention to the fact that we should not be supplying weapons to Israel for this purpose, were ignored, basically. There were form letters that came, usually, and those had the tired refrain of Israel has the right to defend itself, as if that could justify the mass murder and displacement and torture and traumatization and orphaning and maiming and destruction of hospitals and all parts of life. And we know it's intentional. We have Gallant saying it at the very beginning. We're going to, go in there and deny food, deny water, displace everyone, and make everyone a target. So that is genocide, and we've been made complicit in that. I want to speak to the concept of moral injury. This is a term and a concept that's been brought up in terms of making people complicit in genocide. And like Tarek, I just want to say that to speak of my own injury and my own harm is not, it's a very strange feeling given what's happening in Gaza. I don't want to hold that up. By comparison, it's nothing. And yet, the moral injury and the emotional distress that I think all the members of this class action suit and all the constituents of both Thompson and Huffman, the defendants in this class action suit, agree that we have been morally injured by being made complicit as taxpayers in this evil, and we have also suffered emotional distress, trauma, and permanent, really deep distress. So I don't think we should minimize that they have caused us harm. And that's part of the argument of this lawsuit, that we have been harmed by the votes that they took in April to send over $26 billion in weapons, knowing, and if they didn't know, they should have known, that this is a genocide. It's illegal, it's immoral, it's illegal under international law, and it's illegal under U.S. law.
That's right.
I'd like to say that I grew up in a Jewish, not a secular Jewish family, in a Jewish neighborhood, in a Jewish community, not exclusively, of course. And we were taught to constantly think about the lessons of the Holocaust. And we were taught to say never again. We were also taught to ask ourselves, what would I have done? What would you have done? If you lived in Germany in the 30s, the 1930s, if you lived during World War II in any country in Europe that was complicit in genocide against Jews, against Roma, against LGBTQ people, against people with disabilities, all of those people were victims of a genocidal campaign. What would you have done? what would I have done? And I know that one of my answers, just a small answer right now, is join this class action suit and sue the representatives who have made me complicit in this genocide.
Thank you, Carol. It's an honor to introduce Timur Mamadov. Timur is a class representative from Yolo County, and he has been helping in divestment efforts at the university, city, county, and state levels using his accounting background to get divestment from the war machine that's linked and involved in this genocide. Timur has a passion for advocating for rights of incarcerated individuals, and he volunteers at a jail as a Muslim chaplain. He's been a driving force, an amazing comrade effort, driving activist of this lawsuit. So it's an honor to introduce Timur.
Yay!
Thank you. Can everyone hear me? My name is Timur, and I've been a resident of Yolo County for over 10 years now. I've worked there, I've volunteered there, went to college there, raised my family there. And me, along with other constituents in that county, have tried numerous ways to persuade Mike Thompson to stop funding this genocide. Everything from what everyone else has done: emails, letters, calls, including vigils, weekly vigils in front of his Woodland office for over a year. Still nothing. So that is why I chose to be a class rep, to decrease my complicity in this U.S.-backed genocide that's funded with my tax dollars. One of the powerful things that stood out to me in a film I recently watched called Where Olive Trees Weep was towards the end, where Ashira Darwish said something to the effect of, "We need you. If you can't be our voice, at least don't put a penny that goes to the bullets that shoot our children." These so-called representatives not only sent pennies, but billions of dollars. Not just for bullets, but for 2,000, 5,000 pound bombs. Not just to shoot, but to blow up limbs and incinerate. And not to kill our beautiful children, but also their brothers and sisters, their fathers, their mothers, their grandparents, our Reem and our Abu Diya, our souls of our souls. That is why I refuse to stand by. Congressman Thompson, we are here to hold you accountable. And I'm using what recourse is left to me. We bring you to federal court to make you stop using our tax dollars to fund genocide. Thank you.
Also from Yolo County is Dean Johansson, a retired attorney, lifelong activist, and I believe Dean has been petitioning peacefully Representative Thompson every week for the last year, to no avail. Dean? Give it up for Dean Johansson.
So this sign has been above I-80 every Friday during rush hour traffic. My wife and I have been holding it.
Thank you.
Anyway, for a full year, Timur and many others have been holding this vigil in Woodland. That's one of the flags that have flown. The bottom line is, I couldn't stand by either when I saw my tax dollars being used for genocide. My story starts out 40 years ago. I was a Zionist. I went to Israel to live. I had a one-way ticket.
Glad you're back.
The bottom line is, I saw very quickly I'd been lied to. I returned. I was part of the Students Against Apartheid at Cal.
Yeah.
It started me on a lifelong journey that leads me right here. My daughter is here too, and she was part of the UCLA encampment.
Yeah.
But love you too. So anyways, and this is like all of us here, this is our tribe. I had no choice. I had to be here today. I was a civil rights attorney, and this is Autumn. And she stands up to, along with my Jewish wife, over I-80 every Friday. She's also worked tirelessly, like many of the people I see here. And I'll be brief, but the bottom line is, there was no way I could not stand up and be a voice for so many that have been pounded and pounded down, just like that siren trying to pound down my voice. Stand up and fight back for those that can't and don't have a voice. I'm also, I should say, I'm also a Quaker, and this goes to the heart of the Quaker peace testimony of over 300 years. And I would ask those with the same spiritual calling to join us. Thank you.
And now from my home county, Mendocino County, is Linda Helland. Linda Helland has lived in Ukiah in Mendocino County for 25 years. She's a public health professional. She has joined this lawsuit because the U.S.-Israel genocide of the indigenous population of Palestine is the antithesis of public health. She's also done a lot of other things, but we won't talk about that. Good trouble. Thank you. You're not, Mike.
Thank you. My name is Linda Helland. I live in Ukiah on Pomo land in Mendocino County. I have joined this class action lawsuit against Representative Huffman, representing hundreds of Mendocino County residents feeling anguish, despair, and shame at being forced to be complicit in this colonial genocide for land and resource theft. I have dedicated my career to protecting the public's health. Israeli attacks with U.S. bombs have damaged or destroyed more than 600 Palestinian health facilities over the last 14 months. Israel, with U.S. bombs, have killed over 1,047 medical professionals, the highest number of attacks on health facilities and personnel in world history, with our money and our weapons. On our phones every day, we see children shot in the head by Israeli snipers, Palestinian women who are too hungry and thirsty to breastfeed their babies because Israel uses starvation as a weapon, rotting babies in incubators after the Israeli military took over the hospital and cut off electricity. Palestinian teenagers burned to death, still attached to their hospital IVs when Israel bombs their hospitals. And parents collecting bags of unidentifiable children's body parts because that's all that's left to bury after Israel uses our weapons to bomb schools.
we in public health know that the reported number of dead is just a fraction of the true death toll. Particularly in this conflict, where journalists have been targeted in the hundreds, and the health system that counts the dead has been deliberately destroyed. The medical journal The Lancet conservatively estimated in July of last year that 186,000 Palestinians had been killed. This number is undoubtedly much, much higher now, after so many more weapons, so much more Israeli violence, and less aid allowed into Gaza. This is genocide, and we are paying for it. It is our genocide. Providing weapons that will be used to violate human rights and that are used for offensive purposes violates multiple U.S. laws. So in funding this genocide, Mr. Huffman is a criminal, and he has made us all criminals against our will. What Dr. Martin Luther King said in 1967 is even more true today. The greatest purveyor of violence in the world today is my own government. The psychological distress and moral injury I experienced from being forced to pay for genocide has caused me irreparable harm, manifested in depression, anxiety, distractions from work, inability to find joy in daily living, and inability to sleep peacefully. While my suffering is nothing compared to that of the noble Gazans, my soul is still shattered, like the bones of tens of thousands of Palestinian children crushed under the rubble. Elected representatives have a duty and an obligation to tax and spend according to the will of their people. Polls show about 70% of Americans support an immediate permanent ceasefire and a cessation of U.S. weapon shipments to Israel. People in Mr. Huffman's district are even more strongly in support of peace. Between October of last year and April of this year, I personally called Mr. Huffman's office over 70 times to plead that he stand for basic humanity and against genocide, and to let him know sending weapons to Israel violates U.S. and international law. We requested meetings with Mr. Huffman, but got no response. He betrayed democracy by voting for more weapons for genocide in violation of the will of his constituents. The U.S.-Israeli genocide of indigenous Palestinians is the genocide of our time. I will never be able to wash the blood of hundreds of thousands of innocents from my hands. The only way to stop the genocide is to stop the weapons. Representative Huffman, we hold you accountable. I am using what recourse is left to me, bringing you to federal court to make you stop using my tax dollars to fund genocide.
Now we have another person from Mendocino County, Arthur Jankuki. I can't say it. I can't say it. Close enough. Arky is what we call him. He's a physician, a pediatrician, emergency department pioneer, and worldwide consulting in converting them versus us interactions to win-win mutual trust through the learningcenter.net. Pro bono consultant in how do you say that word? Kibbutzes. I'm of a Lebanese descent. I can't say those words. Pro bono consultant in kibbutzes orgs in Israel in the 1980s on children's educational criteria. Married with 4 children, grandchildren too. Still a physician consultant. Welcome, Arky.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Thank you. Thank you. Indeed, I am a physician and a pediatrician. I have, and a constituent of Representative Huffman for 46 years. I bear no personal animus toward the representative. He's good on the environment, but he has involved me personally in genocide. I've spent my life, as many of you have, as parents, whatever, taking care of people, trying to help people in any way that we can. How would I, a doctor, how would I live with the slaughter of 20,000 babies and children? How would I live with thousands and thousands of babies and children with their limbs ripped off, burnt, scattered in the rubble? How would I live with that? How would any parent live with that? Any nephew, any niece, any grandparent, any person live with that, let alone cause it? Representative Huffman, you can change. You must change now. Or, sir, we will see you in court. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Saul. Appreciation for Saul for all this work. Thank you, thank you. Thank you. Another round of applause for Archie and Linda. Yeah. Our healthcare professionals. We're getting there, but it's very important that the testimony of the various class reps is heard, but we are moving towards completion. Next up is Bud Ketchum. Bud is a retired local farmer. He has 53 years experience as a member of Operating Engineers Local 3. He has a background in law and employee assistance and heavy construction. He describes himself as a lifelong New Deal Democrat. He feels betrayed by Mike Thompson and the current Democratic Party because their actions implicate him in the genocide of Palestinians. Bud is from Lake County. Give up a warm round for Bud Ketchum.
Frozen in place. My name is Bud Ketchum. I am a resident of Lake County and I'm the class representative of one. I have great difficulty just trying to get my head around all this, and I'll tell you why. In the second grade, in elementary school, we were given a little tome, a little news weekly, called the Weekly Reader. In that Weekly Reader, one of the big items was this wonderful new country of Israel. I was 7 years old. For 75.5 years, I've watched the degradation of that dream. I had that dream. I've been disabused of that dream. The reality of my life was I worked for a living. I've represented large numbers of people. I've given a lot of speeches. Today, I stand on my own 2 feet. I apologize to no one. I don't represent anybody, any particular person, individual, king, queen, prince, or potentate. The reality of it is I have a conscience. My conscience has been violated. I have suffered physical injury. My stomach turns at night. I can't sleep to this day. I'm an old man. I have something to offer. Nobody wants to listen. It's okay, that's fine. I can understand anomy. I don't have to have a name. I do have an identity. And if you ask, I'll tell you who I am. Now, the reality of it is, my moral and philosophical values of peace on earth and goodwill to all is not being represented by the votes of Mike Thompson to suborn genocide in Gaza and to continue the military support for Israeli occupation of Palestine. I consider this to be an application of Mike Thompson's constitutional responsibility to tax and spend according for the general welfare and according to the international and constitutional laws of this country. I'm thus being denied financial and social benefits which would otherwise be available to me and to my fellow citizens. Thank you very much. It's that simple. Everything I've heard today, I understand and I support. Thank you.
I want you to realize how diverse this class action group is. We're talking about Marin County, we're talking about Lake County, Sonoma, Mendocino, Trinity, Humboldt, hippies and wine drinkers all together. It's a real powerful, powerful, powerful solidarity we have, and we're going to need it. So next we have from Marin County, Jane Jewell. Jane became aware of the suffering of the Palestinian people in the early 1950s when she remembers the children in refugee camps in Lebanon, sleeping in tents and dying from the cold. It made a big impact. Jane founded 14 Friends of Palestine in Marin in December 2004 to advocate for the Palestinian people locally. She was also involved with Free Gaza, breaking the siege in 2008, as well as Gaza's ARC and Stop Zim Action Committee. She also has a brutal sense of humor. I've really enjoyed her. Here she is. Welcome, Jane.
Sorry, I don't have any jokes at the moment. It's a pretty miserable time because of the genocide that's taking place in Gaza. I'm here to represent some 80 to 90 people who are in my group in Marin who've been phoning Jared Huffman every day for a year, Monday to Friday. I do mine in the bathroom, I take my phone in, and I deal with two shits at once. Okay, that was a joke. That's the only joke I'm going to make. That's the humor. That's it now for humor. Okay. I know that he's been inundated with calls asking for the end of the genocide. I talk with the aides. They've got to know me quite well now because I call them every day. And they say that there have been far more telephone calls and emails asking for the end of the genocide and for us to stop sending weapons to support this genocide using our tax dollars. There have been far more of those people than there have Zionists who want the genocide to continue. Has Huffman done anything in this respect? No. He's done nothing. In fact, he's done much worse than nothing. Last April, he voted to send $26 billion, not million, $billion worth of weapons to Israel to continue this genocide using our tax dollars to pay for these weapons. Some of these weapons are just bombs, which destroy homes still with the people inside them who get pulverized into dust or they burn to death. In addition, they've used the illegal use of white phosphorus, which has been supplied by America. It comes from Pine Bluff Arsenal in Arkansas, and again, it's paid with our tax dollars. This white phosphorus burns people to death. It burns right down to the bone. You can't put it out with water, and thousands of people have now burnt to death because of the white phosphorus that we're sending to Israel, that they rain down on the inhabitants of Gaza. The real definition of the word Holocaust is to burn to death people. And that's exactly what Israel is doing. Israel is committing a Holocaust against the Palestinian people in Gaza. Many years ago, when my oldest child was just a baby. He woke up one night hungry. And he screamed, and he screamed, and he screamed. And I felt terrible that he was screaming, and I rushed into the kitchen, and I must have spent no more than 5 minutes preparing some food for him to eat. And during those 5 minutes that I kept him waiting, and I felt terrible about it, he continued to scream and scream, till finally I could feed him. And I remember thinking, that was some 40 years ago, how terrible it must be for a Palestinian mother to have a child screaming from hunger, and there is absolutely nothing you can do about it, because you've got no food in the house. That's what's happening today. Palestinian mothers have their children. They probably don't scream because they're too weak, so they cry, and then they whimper, and then they die from starvation. This is what we are funding with our tax dollars. One of our members of our group, Leslie here, has been so upset, as we all are, by what's happening. She's gone on hunger strike in solidarity with the Palestinian people in Gaza. She's now on day 31. I've been very concerned about her because she wasn't exactly overweight in the first place. If it were me doing it, I'd probably last for a year, but Leslie is doing it, and I was very concerned. I said, what can I do to help stop you doing this hunger strike? And she said, if you can get me a meeting with Huffman, I will end the hunger strike. Well, I tried. We did have a meeting with his legislative assistant, Juliana, but I never got her a meeting with Huffman, not even by Zoom. Why? Because he couldn't care less about Leslie, and he couldn't care less about Palestinian lives. So now Leslie and I are taking it to the next level. We're going to sue Jared Huffman in this class action lawsuit. And now that it's been presented, it's been filed, whatever the word is, Leslie is going to break her fast today. Shame on Jared Huffman for committing a Holocaust against the Palestinian people.
Thank you, Jane. And another round of applause for Leslie, day 31. Day 31. Like I said, we're just about done, but some very important folks to close us out with, one of whom is Chris Perando. Chris is also from Marin County and is a class rep. Chris is an organizer with Marin DSA and is one of the co-chairs of their Palestine Solidarity Committee. Chris has been organizing for Palestine since 2021, since the 2021 Sheikh Jarrah protests, and has worked on national BDS work within DSA since. I can also add he's also a healthcare professional. Give it up for Chris Perando.
Thank you for that introduction, and thank you for everyone that's spoken as of this point. Just to touch on that healthcare point that Seth mentioned, I am a healthcare worker. I'm a proud union shop steward for Teamsters Local 856, and I didn't want to talk about this because it gets me so emotional, but everyone else has, lay their hearts out today, so I figured I might as well too. Sometimes I find myself walking through the NICU, and I just can't get through that without thinking about the bombs that have been sent to Israel using my tax dollars to kill babies in the NICU in Palestine. And what are we doing? How is this still happening after more than a year? It's been clear for over a year, for over 75 years, what Israel's intentions are with Gaza, with Palestinians, with the West Bank, with South Lebanon, with, parts of Syria too. It's more than clear, and Huffman continues to live in denial. I have led protests and marches outside of his office in San Rafael multiple times. I've had meetings with the man himself. I remember one on the day of the Flower Massacre, and it's just he just rope-a-dopes you, you know? It's just, he knows what's happening. He'll give you a traditional liberal Zionist like bullshit response and then just move on to a next question. And I'm done. I am done writing letters. It should not be the Sisyphusian task to talk to someone to get him to stop supporting genocide. I am angry and I want to hold him accountable, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to sue him, and he's going to be held accountable. Thank you all for joining us here.
Okay, so we go to Humboldt County. Humboldt County is about 6.5 hours away. So she wasn't able to come, but George Russell, a class member, is going to read her statement. Pamela Brown is a professor emeriti. Is that how you say it? Emeritus. She has lived for 30 plus years in Arcata, California, Humboldt County. Prior to retiring 12 years ago, she was a professor for 30 years at our own Humboldt State University. She works for social work, change, justice, and human rights. So as I said, George is going to read her statement.
Thank you, George.
Yes? Okay. My life emotionally and intellectually fell apart in October 2023. As I witnessed and read about the horror inflicted on innocent children, women, and men in Gaza over days, then weeks, then months, and now more than a year, I continued down a dark hole that my friends began to remark on. The distress and despondency I experience have been profound, unlike any other time in my life. Added to this was the disruption to close, long-term, deep friendships with my Jewish friends, resulting in social and emotional isolation from them due to their support of Israel, or at the very least, choosing to ignore what was happening. Since then, I've worked tirelessly to bring my community the reality of what Palestinians have faced for 70 plus years under Israeli domination and later occupation. We hosted sold-out showings of documentaries about how Palestinians lived before 2023, had panel discussions, marched along local streets, helped supply students on campus with needed supplies, and wrote pieces and letters in our local newspapers. This was all done in collaboration with other people to try to stop the genocide, which has been the plan since Zionists arrived on Palestinian land, as documented in the archives in Israel. Jared Huffman's choice to not stand against this complete destruction of entire communities, and most recently targeted shots at refugee camps, physicians, and aid workers, is a serious dereliction of his duties as my representative. Calls, emails, and attempts to make appointments to talk about this have been useless. Due to the impact of making me complicit in this genocide by not voting against sending arms to Israel, I suffer and have been harmed as a federal taxpayer. I am unwillingly forced to financially support this genocide with my federal tax dollars. This emotional distress is simply not sustainable for me. Congressman Jared Huffman needs to be accountable for the loss of more than 45,000 lives, and I am using what recourse is left to me. We bring him to federal court to make him stop using our federal tax dollars to fund genocide.
Thank you. Oh wait, I'm gonna do one.
Okay, cool.
Isn't it on?
Yeah, it sure is. Here, let me get it. This is it?
You want to do one?
No, you can go for it. That's great.
Last speaker. Norman Solomon of Marin County, a 25-year resident of Marin County, is Executive Director of the Institute for Public Policy and National Director of RootsAction.org. He is the author of 13 books on politics, media, and foreign policy. The paperback edition of his latest book, War Made Invisible, includes an afterword about the Gaza war. Thank you, Norman.
2 weeks ago, Amnesty International issued a report saying that Israel is engaged in genocide. Today, Human Rights Watch issued a report concluding that Israel is engaged in genocide. It's incontrovertible that Israel is engaged in genocide using our tax dollars to do that. There are many, many, many aspects of what is sickening and disgusting and outrageous about how defenders of continued military aid to Israel try to rationalize that aid. My particular congressperson, Jared Huffman, has repeatedly said that he is shipping aid, helping to ship military aid to Israel, in part because he opposes anti-Semitism. Most of all, as a human being, but including as a Jewish American, I find that kind of rationale disgusting and outrageous and sickening. This lawsuit filed today is a beginning to challenge support for genocide. It is certainly not the end.
That's right. Thank you. Give it up one more time for Norman Solomon. Yeah. And Roots Action, Norman's organization, has been streaming this live. So we've now heard, yes, thanks to Roots Action. We've now, and there's a lot of hits on the live stream apparently. There's activity. Again, special thanks to Justice Vanguard in the house, Kiyoshi Taylor, Keenan Moose, making it happen. You know, we're done, but I just want to say everything was said about the last several speakers about Huffman, of course, applies to Mike Thompson, who's a co-defendant. As a high school teacher, I saw my students talk to him. We brought him, he actually came to Rancho Cotati High School where I was teaching, and the students met with him in person in January and said, stop sending weapons and military aid to Israel because genocide is happening. This is in January, right when the ICJ made its first ruling that there was an open, plausible case. And what did he do? 4 months later, he voted to send $26 billion. So the same pattern of people beating their heads against the wall to say, stop. And that's why we're here, and that's why I am proud to bring him to federal court as well. Yeah. And I'm representing those students who could not be here today. And I'm representing lots of fellow educators who've seen the high schools and the schools systematically destroyed, just like the hospitals, right? We want to wrap up with some chants, and I also want to...
We're going to do a Q&A.
Oh, we're going to do the Q&A, of course. But before it slips my mind, again, thanks to PSL for providing the sound and to Saul for all of his work. We have an announcement that on January 19th, as Trump gets ready to come in to oppose his far-right agenda. And of course, we're standing against both parties for their involvement in genocide and the plunder of the planet. This is an independent, anybody who's fed up with that. We believe in human rights.
Yes.
So.
Members. All right, so I want to make sure that everybody understands that if you haven't signed up as a class member and you're in either Huffman's district or Thompson's district, you can sign up. There's flyers around. I'm sure people are passing them out. I also want to say that there's other class reps that didn't choose to speak. We're going to open it up right now to a Q&A from the media. Dean, I'm sure you need to come forward. They're going to have questions for you.
Thank you. We recognize that was a lot of time, but we appreciate people's focus. Are there any questions? Yes. Okay, yeah. Dean, you're being summoned.
I have a question for Dean. Wait. There's somebody asking.
I'm sorry, was there a question? Yes, so the question is the relief that is being sought in this case, and an idea of how quickly that might be awarded by the court. So in terms of the relief, there's three types, and this is just how the legal system categorizes things. So one is what's known as declaratory relief, and that's where the court makes a declaration, a statement, in terms of the rights that have been violated, the constitutional violations. So we are seeking that. We are also seeking what's known as injunctive relief, and that's a court order to put an end to the allocation of funding of the Israeli military for the purpose for what has resulted in the ongoing genocide in Gaza. And the final category is damages or monetary relief, and that is for the compensation that the civil court system allows for people who have suffered harm in various ways, and as people spoke to the various insignificant emotional harm that has been done as a result of being forced to be complicit in genocide. In terms of how quickly this may unfold, it's a cliche, the wheels of justice turn slowly, or something to that effect. This could be a long haul. We're certainly in for it. We will stay in this as long as it takes. It will likely not be a matter of months. It could be a year or more, but we're going to stay with it.
Right on. And I'm going to add one thing. And should there be the third category of relief, compensation for damages, as a class, we are going to donate any and all to the Palestinian people.
Any more questions from the media? Yes, media. Press conference. Any questions? Yeah. Yeah, just a minute.
You've got one right there.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sorry. Time frame on the next court date, actual court hearing, is there a set date? I hope he repeats it.
Yeah.
The question is a timeline in terms of the next court date. There is no court date on calendar at the moment. We just filed this morning. The next step is to serve the case. In other words, put the Congress members on notice that this has been filed. They'll get a copy of the paperwork. And then once they are served, they have 21 days to respond in court and file in court. And then after that, it depends on how they respond to the case in terms of an actual court hearing, which could be within a matter of a couple months, but it depends on how the defendants respond to the case.
Beautiful. Any more questions, folks?
From the press.
Okay. We probably have time for a question or two from non-media, and then I see her. She's been waiting, and then I see you. Absolutely, and then we'll wrap up. Yeah.
This is Sharon B., and she used to work for the State Department in Gaza 19 years ago.
Sharon? Yeah.
My question for Dean is, if there is a ceasefire, the way that our lawsuit is written, would our actions still continue for an accountability thing, or how would that work? And thank you so much for your work.
Where's Dean?
Right behind you.
No, they're not using it.
Oh, okay. So in terms of the impact of a ceasefire on this case, should that come to be, that would take a conversation with the class and the class representatives. They control the destiny of this case to an extent, so we would have a discussion about that. But I would say that that the harm has already been done, and so I think that certainly with the class representatives and what they decided, we could certainly continue it even if there were a ceasefire.
Thank you. Do we have you had a question? One more.
Yeah.
Toby.
I apologize if this was addressed earlier.
I apologize if this was addressed earlier, but I would like to know if there's constituents from other districts who are excited about this lawsuit and want to use this as a model, and what level are we at trying to spread this across the nation?
It is a great question, and it's very exciting. As soon as the word started to get out, just 2 days ago, we sent our first press advisor, and we got feedback. I know in the South Bay, people they want to know if they can hire Dean. They want to go for this. New York City,
Yep.
Seth, go ahead, Seth.
And we were contacted, folks that are connected with AROC. There's an interest in suing Pelosi. You see, we were all inspired by the lawsuit back in January that the Center for Constitutional Rights and the Palestinian families who were plaintiffs sued the Biden administration. And then, of course, the federal court said, well, we don't do foreign policy. This is different. We're talking about what they're doing with our domestic tax dollars. And they don't have a right to just do whatever the hell they want with that tax dollars. They can't build a private religious school with federal tax money, and they sure as heck can't fund genocide. So we hope this replicates. We know that folks in the New York, the Palestine Committee of the New York City National Lawyers Guild reached out, and they're interested maybe in amicus. So this is serious. And we are in this for the long haul. And even if there's a ceasefire tomorrow, we want the damages so we can donate to the rebuilding of Palestine.
And we want a declaration that what they did was immoral and illegal. Period.
I just want to remind people that if you know anyone in Huffman or Thompson's district, please let them know that they can continue. We are taking members all the way up to when it goes to court, I believe. Is that right, Dean? Yeah. So spread the word in all the counties where you know people in their districts.
So we just got informed from the Kiyoshi and Keenan that the live stream had over 260 folks on it. Undoubtedly, media was reaching out to us wanting that link, so we'll see how that plays out, but that's exciting. It will be a permanent YouTube post as well. Thanks as well to Scott and Dean Johansson, Scott Stewart and Dean Johansson for all the banners. And again, if you know of people who are wanting to sign up, let's do it. Senators can also be sued for this because they're also part of Congress, obviously. Congress has power of the purse. Let's wrap up for why we're all here. And what we're all here, of course, is for power to the people and for a free Palestine and an end to genocide. So,
what do we want?
Peace.
When do we want it?
Now.
What do we want?
Peace.
When do we want it?
Now. What do we want? Justice.
When do we want?
What do we want? When do we want?
Now. What do we want?
When do we want it?
Now.
Free Palestine.
Free Palestine. Ain't no power like the power of the people, cause the power of the people don't stop. Ain't no power like the power of the people, cause the power of the people don't stop. That's right. Free Palestine!
Free Palestine! Thank you all.
You guys, we just passed lunch. There's granola bars, organic granola bars, tangerines, muffins. Just help yourself if you're hungry. There's some snacks.